My name is Elena Vargas and I am 29 years old. This wedding is a joke, my sister shouted, interrupting our vows. You are marrying a waiter. How pathetic. But to understand how we reached that moment, I have to go back a few hours when I still believed this would be the happiest day of my life. The ceremony was perfect. I had chosen every detail with obsessive care. White flowers, chairs perfectly aligned under the open sky, and soft music that seemed to embrace every corner of the garden. I trembled slightly, not from fear but from pure emotion. In front of me stood Ethan Sinclair, the man I had chosen to share my life with. He dressed simply yet elegantly, without pretension. His gaze, however, was firm and warm, as if he knew something the others did not. My family, on the other hand, had never fully accepted him. From the beginning, my older sister Valeria Castillo had been the most critical. For her, life was all about status, appearances, and money. She had always had more than me: better education, better connections, better opportunities, or at least she believed so. When I told her Ethan worked as a waiter in a restaurant, her smile turned into a polite grimace. A waiter, she had said. Elena, you can aim much higher. But I did not want more. I wanted peace. I wanted someone who looked at me the way Ethan did. As if I were enough. That morning, while they prepared me in the room, Valeria entered without knocking. Her dress was exaggeratedly elegant, almost as if she were trying to steal the spotlight. You still have time to cancel this, she said, crossing her arms. I will not, I replied without looking at her directly. You do not understand what you are doing, she insisted. You are lowering yourself. I ignored her. I had already had that conversation too many times. When I walked toward the altar, everything seemed calm. My hands were sweating, but my heart was steady. Ethan smiled at me, and in that moment I knew everything was worth it. The officiant began to speak. I barely heard the words. I was focused on Ethan, on his voice when it was his turn to say his vows. They were simple, sincere, without embellishment. That was what I loved most about him. He never pretended. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and began to speak. That was when everything shattered. This wedding is a joke, Valeria shouted from the front row. The silence fell like a heavy blow. Everyone turned toward her. You are marrying a waiter. How pathetic, she continued, standing up. Her voice was filled with contempt, but also with something else. Something I could not identify in that moment. Elena, enough, my mother whispered, trying to stop her. But Valeria would not listen. This is ridiculous, she said, looking at the guests. Everyone knows it, but no one says it. My hands began to tremble. I looked at Ethan, expecting anger, shame, anything. But no, he simply watched her with an unsettling calm. Valeria let out a bitter laugh and, without another word, turned on her heels and stormed out furiously, leaving a trail of uncomfortable murmurs. The damage was already done. I wanted to disappear. I felt the stares, the whispers, the weight of judgment in the air. Everything I had built for this perfect day had crumbled in seconds. But then Ethan did something unexpected. He smiled. It was not a nervous or awkward smile. It was calm, almost certain. He leaned slightly toward me and whispered, "Should we tell them who I really am?" I looked at him, confused. My mind was too overwhelmed to understand. I shook my head. It was not the moment. I did not want more drama, more chaos. I just wanted to finish the ceremony and hold on to what little remained intact. He nodded as if he understood perfectly and then, as if nothing had happened, took my hand firmly. The officiant hesitated for a moment but continued. I repeated my vows with a slightly broken voice, trying to keep my composure. Ethan never let go of my hand. When we finally said, "I do," there was no enthusiastic applause as I had imagined. It was more contained, timid. Yet in the middle of everything, I felt something strange. An unexpected calm, because Ethan did not seem affected at all. During the reception, the comments came quickly. Some guests avoided looking me in the eyes. Others pretended everything was normal. My mother tried to act as if everything was under control. But her tension was obvious. "I am so sorry," she told me quietly. "I do not know what happened to your sister." I did not know either. Or maybe I did, but I did not want to admit it. Valeria had always needed to be the center. Always needed to win, and that day, for some reason, she could not stand seeing me happy. I looked for Ethan among the crowd. He was talking with some guests. Relaxed, even smiling, as if what happened did not matter. I approached him. "Why did you say that?" I asked quietly. "The part about who you really are." He looked at me with that same calm. "Because it is true," he replied. "But today is your day." I did not want to ruin it any further. His words left me thinking. There was something in his tone. Something that did not fit the simple image everyone had of him. Something I myself had perhaps chosen not to question. The night moved slowly. I tried to enjoy what was left. But a persistent feeling settled in my chest. As if something important was about to be revealed. As if what happened was not the end of a problem, but the beginning of something much bigger. And while I remembered Ethan's gaze, so calm in the middle of the chaos, I understood one thing clearly. The surprise would come later. The party continued, but nothing was the same. I tried to smile, dance, and pretend everything was fine. But inside something had broken. Not only because of what Valeria did, but because of Ethan's words, "Should we tell them who I really am?" That phrase kept repeating in my head. Ethan continued to behave with an almost disconcerting tranquility. He greeted the guests, thanked them for coming, even joked with some as if nothing had happened. But I knew him well enough to know that this calm was not casual. It was control. I approached him again, this time determined. "Ethan, I cannot ignore it anymore," I said. "What exactly did you mean?" He observed me in silence for a few seconds, as if evaluating something. "I promised you today would be your day," he replied. "And it still is. But if you want to know the truth, it is time." I felt a knot in my stomach. Before I could say anything else, one of the event organizers approached us, visibly nervous. "Sir," he said, looking at Ethan, "they're here." Ethan nodded naturally, as if he had been expecting that moment. "Perfect. Let them in." I frowned. "Who is it?" He took my hand gently. "Trust me." I had no time to react. The salon doors opened and several people entered. They were not ordinary guests. They wore formal, serious suits. And their presence completely changed the atmosphere. Among them I immediately recognized one. It was the owner of the restaurant where Ethan worked. My heart jumped. The man walked straight toward us. And what he did next left everyone silent. He extended his hand toward Ethan with respect. "Sir," he said, "not employee, not boy, sir." My breathing stopped. Ethan shook his hand calmly. "Thank you for coming." The murmurs began to grow among the guests. I could barely process what I was seeing. "Ethan," I whispered, "what is happening?" He looked at me with a slight smile. "It is time for everyone to know." He turned toward the guests. His posture changed slightly. He was no longer the simple man everyone thought they knew. There was something in his presence. Something firm, imposing. "Good evening," he said with a clear voice. "I know today has been an interesting day." Some let out nervous laughs. "But there is something I need to clarify," he continued. "Especially after what happened during the ceremony. For a long time, I have allowed people to believe I am just a waiter." A deep silence fell, and yes, I worked as one because I wanted to understand the business from the inside. I wanted to learn, not just inherit without knowing. My mind tried to keep up with his words, but the reality hit when he paused briefly. "I am the owner of the entire chain." The air became heavy. Someone dropped a glass. The sound of breaking crystal seemed to amplify the impact of the revelation. "Not just that restaurant," he added, "but all the ones that carry that name in the city." I could not believe it. I looked at him, searching for any sign that this was a joke. But it was not. Everything fell into place at once. His confidence, his calm, the way he never seemed worried about money or other people's opinions. "I did not say it before," he continued, "because I wanted Elena to choose me. For who I am, not for what I have." I felt a knot in my throat. "And she did," he added, looking directly at me. "Even when others thought she was making a mistake." The guests began to murmur, this time not with judgment, but with surprise, even admiration. "As for what happened," he said finally, "I have nothing to prove. But I do believe respect is the minimum everyone deserves." And with that, he finished. The silence lasted a few seconds. And then, like a wave, the applause came. They were not timid this time. They were strong and sincere. I felt tears in my eyes, not only from the surprise, but from the way Ethan had handled everything, without humiliating, without attacking, just showing the truth. But the story did not end there. A sudden movement near the entrance caught everyone's attention. Valeria had returned. Her face was pale. Her eyes scanned the scene, clearly trying to understand what had just happened. What is going on? She asked. No one answered. Finally her gaze fixed on Ethan. I stepped forward. This, I said calmly, is the reality you did not want to see. Valeria swallowed hard for the first time in her life. She had no words. You thought I was losing, I continued, but it was never about that. She lowered her gaze. It was about being happy, I added. The silence between us was different. This time there was no anger, only distance. Valeria turned slowly and left without saying anything more. And for the first time I did not feel pain watching her go. I felt closure. The music returned. The celebration resumed its course. But now with a completely different energy. People approached, congratulated, laughed. But I could only look at Ethan. Why did you not tell me? I asked. He took my hand, because I wanted to know if you would choose me without it. I smiled with tears still in my eyes. I always would. That night was not perfect. It was chaotic, unexpected, even painful. But it was real, and in the end that was worth more than any appearance. If you made it this far, it is because you understand that appearances deceive. And that sometimes the greatest truths are revealed in the most difficult moments. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next story.